In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to instantiate an object in your world and then use one of its properties to change it in the code of the world. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have an actor. I have an actor here, which my class is called a star or star. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the world that I've created called Star Encyclopedia, which is a subclass, of course, of world, right? So I double click on it, which opens up the editor. Here, let me just change the size here a little bit so it's easier to see. And the first line of code I need is the one required to instantiate the class star. So my object is going to be star, so I first have to write the name of the class. Remember, I always use uppercase letter for the class to make it very clear that it is a class and not an object. And for objects, I use a lowercase. So the next thing, I need an identifier for my object. I'm simply going to call it my star. And I'm going to use the assignment operator, which is an equal sign that says that my star is going to be equal something. Now it's a star, it belongs to the class star, so the type of object that I have to instantiate now is a star object, and the keyword for instantiating something is new, and then I call the constructor of the class, and the constructor always has the same always has the same name as the actual class itself. So in this case, it's going to be star. When you call a function, in this case the constructor function, you always need to remember to use parentheses. You open your parentheses and close your parentheses, and if there are any arguments that need to be passed, they're passed inside of the parentheses. In this case, my constructor has no arguments, so I leave it empty, but I still do need those parentheses. And at the end of every line, you need an end of line character, which in Java is the semicolon. So I put a semicolon in there. For good readability, I'm going to separate the two lines that are not directly related to each other. So in this case, I'm putting a space after the superline. And next, I will actually place my star on the world itself. Now, the world has a built-in function called addObject, and that's the function that we're going to call, and we're going to pass as an argument, we're going to pass my star, and we're going to pass the the x and the y values for where I want it placed on my world. So I'm going to use this keyword, which really means that I'm referring to a function inside of a class itself. So in this case, I'm calling a function that is part of the class Star Encyclopedia that it inherited from its parent, which is world. You know what class something inherited from by seeing the name after extends. So in this case, my class is Star Encyclopedia, and it extends the world class. That means it's a subclass of world. and world has this function called add object. So since world has that function, Star Encyclopedia, which inherits from world, can also call that same function. So we're going to do this dot add object. Note here that there is the uppercase O here, and this is a good convention as well. If your function has several words in it, the name of the function, then each word, it's good to capitalize them. It makes it easier to read your code. So again, functions is the convention to always use lowercase letters there. So we only use uppercase letters really when we're naming classes. So add object, and the arguments that I'm going to pass are my star. You have to make sure that your cases here are the same because Java is case sensitive. And next I'm going to pass the x value for the coordinate value, which I'm going to just do 100, and the next is going to be the y value, which I'm simply going to pass as, say, 50. Right? And the reason I'm leaving some spaces in here is simply to make my code more readable. It's very important to have readable code, not just for others, but for yourself as well. So let's compile this. So here. So wait, let's see. So changed. Let's compile it. And go back in, and there you see my star has already appeared. That means that every time I compile it, I automatically get my star in here. Now, what I can do is I can actually also call functions directly from my world. So, for example, if I want my star to move over somewhat, I could either of course just change the coordinates here, but what I can also do is that now that I've instantiated my star, I can call the functions of that star, or the methods that we have defined for it. In this case, I'm just going to use a method that is part of the actor class, that is star inherited it from actor, and this is I'm going to use the move function, right? And I'm going to move it by 300. Now, even if I placed my star over here at 150, my star is going to move over immediately 300 units. And so it's no longer going to be somewhere up here. It's going to be, you're going to see where it's going to end up. So compile, close that, and you see now it's over here. That is, when I placed the object initially on the screen, it was over here, but then I moved it over 300, which means that whichever way it was turned, it moved 300 spaces, or I should say 300 units. So nothing is really going to happen now if I run it. Oh, well, I had some code in there, so we can see why it moves. Because if you go into the star object, here you can see I had apparently already added some code here to move it in the act method, the act function, right? So function is really just another name for a method. The proper way of calling it in an object-oriented environment is really a method, right? So this is the method act, and it calls another method move. Now remember that this word, I could actually add this here. It kind of makes it clearer that I'm calling a method that is part of the class itself. So this simply refers to the object itself once it's instantiated. So there you have it. Now you know how to instantiate an object and place it on your world, right? All right. Let's see what else we can do.